Good day, everybody. Wolf Driver here, coming to you live once again. We've been off for a couple weeks on our VODcast because we've had a lot of inclement weather. We've had the holidays and some other business stuff we had to take care of. But we're back live today, and we've got a special guest today. Sofia Pellegrino is here, and she's going to be actually interviewing me. So this will be an interesting VODcast because a lot of questions everybody out there wants to ask me will finally be asked. I know a lot of times I'm on here myself and talking about stories and all the good stuff, everything going on with the dogs and the Wolf Driver, what we do, adventures. But I know a lot of times when I meet a lot of people on the trails, and there's so many questions people want to ask that they don't get to. I know you could do that, and you can do it today. You can put in the social media feed where you're watching in the comments section. Ask me any question you want. It'll come up. My producer will let me know, and I'll look at the iPad and try to address it accordingly, even a shout out, whatever. But this will be a lot of fun. Rod, if you can, start the clock too. We will have plenty of time for all kinds of good stuff. But Sofia's going to take it away, ask me questions, and we're gonna rock and roll.
Yes. First of all, I'm very excited to be here. I've been watching all of your YouTube videos.
Thank you.
I love the Huskies. I love what you do. I'm an animal lover, so I'm very excited, and I want to know more, of course. And when I first started watching your YouTube videos, the first question that came to my mind was, why Huskies?
Why Huskies?
Yes.
Great
I want to
question.
know it all.
Great question.
Yes.
Thank you, Sophia. So Sophia wants to know why Huskies, why I like that breed. Because we were just talking before we started the show. She's got a couple dogs, and a lot of people tend to migrate towards a breed. And when I was young, when I started out, I'm the youngest of five. So my three sisters and a brother. And my sister got married. I must have been 12 or 13 years old. And she got married, and her husband's family, her in-laws, had a husky. And I would go over, because they had a swimming pool, I'd go over to her in-laws' house with her and her husband. And this husky, because I was younger, I was small, would jump up on me, and his paws would fit on my shoulders.
Aww.
And I'll never forget, his name was Nanook. And he would always be trying to stare you right in the eye. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? I didn't know anything about what was going on, but you could read the intensity of this dog. And he was very loving and a really good dog from what I knew.
So when that dog was on you, you felt like, because, people, I think, through life, they find their passion. Once they see something, they feel this, their heart racing. They're like, oh my gosh, this feels different. Like, this is what I want to do. Is that how you felt?
Instantly. That's instantly.
So you fell in love with it.
Fell in love. Yeah, I felt like I was looking in the eyes of a wolf.
Wow.
And I'm like, and I was a little kid. What's the difference between a dog and a wolf and a husky and this? So I didn't know, but I'm just like, this is where I want to be. And, I was a little kid, and my parents were actually not animal people per se. They loved them, watching them from the outside. So I could never really have a dog of my own. So I knew nothing about dogs then. I had a cat they let me get, and I had fish and anything they would let me get animals just because I loved animals. I would have them, fish tank, reptile, snake, everything. But the dog was a no way. And once falling in love with this husky, Nanook, I really wanted him. And my parents were like, you can never have a husky like this because you need a big yard. You need to be very physical. Even my parents knew that, who didn't know anything about animals. And actually, my sister's in-laws, they would tell me that too, because I was like so sad I couldn't have.
So did you finally convince your parents?
I never convinced my parents.
So you didn't have a husky when you were young?
I didn't have a husky when I was young.
Wow.
No.
So at what age did you get your first husky?
I got my first husky. So when my wife and I got a house where we could actually have a yard. We said, you know what? I want a husky. Because as soon as we were looking at houses, and the first thing I said was, it's got to have a yard. Something of some size. Now, we couldn't afford a big yard, but just a small yard where I could have a husky.
Right.
And she knew that's what I wanted, so we got our first husky, Zara.
So what did you do because I'm sure the first husky that you fell in love with passed away.
Right.
What did you do between that time and when you got your first husky? Did you?
Well, you mean their husky passed away?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I would have fish and I would have reptiles.
But will you still go and research and be very?
I was very much interested, and I didn't research enough. So when I got my first husky, I was like, loved him. He was just a cute little cotton ball, puff ball.
So it's like your dream finally came true.
Right.
Because
exactly.
like, for instance, for me, I do acting, right?
Right.
So I remember when I fell in love with acting, I was like, this is what I want to do so bad. But of course, my circumstances didn't allow me to do it. But I always in the back of my head, I will do this, I will research, I will read, I was always thinking about it. And then finally when the opportunity came, I was like, I felt so good. Is that how you felt?
It's how I felt. And
yes.
the thing with my, what my wife wanted to be sure was I wasn't just going to get the dog and leave him home every day.
Right.
So when I was doing this, I'm like, the opportunity presented itself even further because I had my own business, which was a pet business.
Oh,
but we would sell pet products wholesale.
So you were still within that.
I was always within the realm of animals.
Of course.
But when we had our pet wholesale business, and just products, not dry goods, no animal livestock or anything, I was able to bring my dog. My partner and I said, you know what? He had a dog and he would bring his dog every day. And I said, I'm getting a husky, or I want to. Is it okay if I bring the husky every day? So that made it even better because I could have this dog and share every moment. I didn't have to leave him at home every day. So I know everybody can't do that. But for me, with a breed like a husky and a novice owner, not knowing anything about it, I thought it would be a really good opportunity and it would work out well.
So after the first husky, when did you have the wolf driver? I want to know about the wolf driver and the wolf pack and how it all came about.
So and that's the story. I got my first husky, Czar, CZAR, back in Czar, CZAR.
Oh, okay.
Like Czar, like from a Russian Czar. And just because I knew what I was getting. I didn't know fully what I was getting into, but I know they were, kind of demanding, put it that way, and not always in an aggressive way, but talkative. Like, well, I want my food, I want to run, whatever. But I got Czar, and so he was a cute puffball. This is back in '95 again, and I got him when he was like 9 weeks old. So he was a real small baby.
Aww.
He grew quick, and he was so cute, and my wife and I did a really good job of house training him, and it was easier because I was able to take him to work with me again every day. So he had to go to the bathroom. I was able to give him a shot to go outside and relieve himself. So he learned pretty quickly. But I learned pretty quickly that the walks we were doing weren't quite enough. My wife and I would take him hiking, actually. She got me into a lot of the trails that I would go on in our area. She's like, yeah, let's go out to trails. I knew nothing about this stuff. And she's like, the dog will love it. Zara will love it. So we started going to trails. We started hiking. I'm like, this is really cool. But then as he got a little older, he started pulling. And I'm like, whoa, easy, Zara. And I'm like, pulling me over. And I was younger then. I probably was about 23, 24 years old. And I was able to control it because I had strength. But for my wife, it was a little harder to control him. So I'm like, what can I do? So started looking into trainers. I'm in the pet business, and I went to a pet trade show. So these pet trade shows are for the pet stores to come and buy from the wholesalers. So, and they're to show new products, and the big companies go there and the small companies go there. So we were there displaying, and I didn't have any dog products. I did all from my knowledge of aquarium, all these products I had invented. That's my business. And I went in and I'm looking around and I saw this bicycle attachment. And I was talking to the company and they're like, yeah, you can attach your dog safely to your bike. And I'm like, no way. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, usually you can't buy stuff at the show. You have to order it. And they said, you could buy this here right now for $50 or something. It's called a Springer. And that changed my life forever pretty much because I put that on my bicycle when I got home and I took my dog Czar around the block, just rode him on the road around the block. We lived in a quiet neighborhood and did about a mile, I don't know, half mile. We come back and he was tired. He was the best dog ever. He's like, yes, Dad, what can I do? Can I get some sleep? And I'm like, what's going on? I mean, I was checking him. Everything okay? He just tired out. I'm like, either the bike ride agrees with him or maybe it was too much for him. I didn't know. But after doing it a few more times, building up to more mileage, I could see that he was loving it. And this is what he wanted to do. And it was like that light bulb went off in my head. This is what people that run sled dogs. This has got to be something like that, running that breed, the husky breed. So
how long after did you get the second one?
Second dog. So now that I thought I had it mastered, I'm like, whoa, I know what to do. I can wear a dog out now because if he wants to go, no matter how fast he wants to go, no matter what hill he wants to climb, no matter how long he wants to go, I can do it because I don't have to. I couldn't
Yeah.
walk that fast.
Yeah.
Even though I was in shape, I couldn't walk or run that fast. So I got my second dog. I think it was a year
So you
later.
just got one more. You didn't get like 10.
No, I didn't get 10. No, because I got a wife.
You didn't get that excited. You were like, oh my gosh, I can do it. Let me
She's
get
like,
10.
whoa, put the brakes on.
She's like, no, hold on, just one more.
Exactly. So even that was hard to get. So I got Hudson in about a year later, so
Mm-hmm.
about 96. And again, knowing nothing about dogs, just my brief experience with Czar. I got the second dog, and I thought it was going to be all hunky-dory. It's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it was a little more challenging than that
Mhm.
because bringing another male into an environment where one dog was kind of ruled the household because there were no other dogs. And
Yes.
he was that created a whole nother can of worms that I had no idea. I knew how to get the energy out of them, but now I didn't know how to make them get along.
So they would fight a lot.
They would fight a lot. Yes.
Oh,
That
so
was-
how did
was
you
tough.
manage?
Well, the first thing I did, a lot of people will get a second dog after having one dog,
Yes.
especially when you start talking working breeds and
Mhm.
dogs that are competitive in nature, especially. It becomes a real challenge. And
Yeah.
they put them together right away, like I did. And it becomes, if bad blood breaks out, no pun intended,
Yeah.
it becomes a problem that is harder to solve. It's easier to introduce them slowly and do all the right
Mhm.
methods than just throw them together like I did, because I didn't know.
You didn't know.
So I consulted.
Was anyone badly injured?
No,
Or
luckily, no. I had some fights though. I mean, it's still with Huskies because of their nature. You can get some fights. Now, my experience now, I know what's going on every second of every day with my dog. So even though once in a while, if you have some that are a little more assertive,
Mhm.
which you'll get a lot in Huskies, I know it's coming and I know how to control it and I know how to, I'm going to say train, not necessarily train it out of them, but make it work with them.
Okay.
So with this Hudson, my second dog,
Mhm.
I had no clue. So first thing I did was consult with my veterinarian.
Mhm.
And my veterinarian's like, well, first of all, we got to get them
Yeah.
fixed. We got to get them neutered. They're 2 males. And I said, really? What's that got to do with it? And he's like, well, that will take out some of their hormones, some of their drive per se. Because a lot of times they'll fight over opposite sex dogs. They'll fight over.
Mhm.
They'll fight over food and they'll
Mhm.
fight over territory. Those are the three big things.
Ah.
So when he said that'll take a little bit of that hormone, that drive out of them and can help.
Mhm.
So I was going to neuter them anyway. So I said, let's do it. So I did that. It helped a little bit. And I was with them all the time to control the sparring match.
Mhm.
It did kind of subside with them, but I consulted with trainers next. And almost nobody knew what the heck they were talking about. Every
Yeah.
trainer I would call, they were just like, they knew other dogs and easier dogs to train, easier
So
dogs.
Huskies are different to
Huskies
train.
are different, yeah. And
You
a
can't
lot-
just cage. You know how you cage them?
Yeah.
No, you can't.
No, I mean no. It's I
So
agree.
timeout. I call it timeout for my dogs.
Timeout. and I love crate training,
Yes.
and all my dogs are always crate trained.
Mhm.
But they had to coexist with each other. So I started working and understanding. After a lot of trainers failed me, I started doing the dog sport, what I call back then dog powered sports, which are what they call bike joring sports,
Okay.
where they're pulling you, which my dog was kind of doing, even though he's running on the Springer, which I told you about was the device I got. Czar would go on the bike. So I started doing that with them. When they were doing that together, they were perfectly fine with each other. And that's how I started developing their relationship and letting them know that I'm not going to stand for this kind of behavior, which is easier said than done. But I was able to communicate that. A few years later, and we got it all down to pretty good. I learned, here's another mistake I made, which people might not know. I used to free feed. So free feed means there's always food in their bowl. They can eat
Yes.
anytime.
Yeah,
So,
I do that too.
and there's nothing necessarily wrong with it,
Yes.
depending on your dogs. If they can control
course.
their appetite, if they can control their behavior with each other. So if you have one dog, it's a little easier, but they might overeat.
Yeah.
Who knows? But that's my next vet visit was dogs got into, we were doing a physical on the dogs. And he says, this dog's really thin. And I'm like,
Which one was it? The second one?
The second one.
The second
Hudson.
one.
He's like, he's really thin. And I'm like, really? I didn't notice because their hair's thick. And I just couldn't tell. And I wasn't as astute. I wasn't as studying the dogs back then. I wasn't as knowledgeable. So he said, what's going on? What are you feeding? And I told him, and he said, well, the other dog's a little heavier. This one's thin. He said, how do you feed him? And I told him I free feed. He said,
he's eating all his food.
He said, that's it. Yeah, he said, he's eating all his food, and he's probably guarding the bowl when the other dog, once he's done, when the other dog wants to go near it. Free feed, took that away. So once I knew the challenging points with the food, I didn't have any other female dogs in the house, but the neutering them would negate a lot of that anyway. And territory was something that was a little harder to change. So I could pull the food, just don't feed. I would feed them in crates separately. Okay. So when they ate, they had their own time to eat as much as they want. And when they get back in the crate, if they wanted to eat more, they could.
Now, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Because I had the same issue, and one of my dogs was eating super fast. And he got sick. Yeah. He was bloated all the time. Yeah. Did that happen to yours?
It didn't happen, but I've seen it happen a lot. So did you use, they make food bowls for bloat? There's a lot of
there's a food bowl, so they can eat slower.
Right.
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
Did that work for you?
Yes, it did, because he used to eat very fast.
Yes.
Because he was afraid that the other one would eat his food.
Yeah.
And that he would be bloated all the time.
That's why if I put him in the crate, they know that that's their time. Nothing else can get to them. Yeah. And they feel comfortable to eat. Some dogs will still inhale their food. Yes. So you need to use other ways. Also, eventually, I started feeding a frozen raw diet. And I would feed them frozen. Now, Huskies, they have the ability to easily eat frozen food. It would take them longer to eat. So that would slow them down too. But keep in mind, they were always in their crate, and that solved that problem of food. So what I learned was even treats, like when I would give them treats, the other one would take the other treat, and it could start a fight right there. So, and I had to let them know, no, this is for this dog, and this is for this dog, and I'm bigger than you, so you're going to listen. And that really worked. The Hudson became a little more submissive. Czar was more of an alpha dog because he was my first dog. Yeah. So he was always the one I had to be careful of. But I got this to work out really well. And about
how long did it take you?
It only took me because I had them together all the time. They were going to like each other, or they were going to get me. So it took me, I would say, 6 months to really be good with each other. Okay. And they were on an invisible fence in the yard we had that I was telling you about. So they were able to go, like if the one dog was getting on the other dog's nerves, they could go to another area. Okay. But that space, instead of a confined territory, that's where they become more territorial. So, and I learned this because if you watch dogs go through a doorway, for instance, and you see one dog go first, they're going at the same time, and one dog sometimes goes first and the other one goes, it's usually because of the alpha thing. So it's usually because territory, because they're in a tight spot. To share that tight spot, if the other dog feels like he's on the same level, they'll go together. And if they feel like one dog feels like I have to flex my dominance and show the other dog you can't do that, I've witnessed that dynamic with Huskies for all the Huskies I've had, and it's really interesting. If you know what you're looking for, it's how dogs get along with each other, how wolf packs, how these animals that are pack animals thrive in nature, because they learn their hierarchy and they learn the territory and who eats first. So it's really interesting, but we're trying to domesticate them, of course, in our home, and we don't want them fighting for dominance. No. So, but after about 6 months, everything was really good. Once in a while, I can't tell you, I mean, I was perfect, so I knew how to treat them. But once in a while, my wife, I would teach her, how to give the treats or whatever. We did have to be concerned with these two dogs because they could spark a fight. But I had them down really good, but you still had to always be alert on how to handle them to properly assure there was going to not be a problem. But a few years later, through my pet business, because I had people working for me that were pet people, because even though we sold pet products, we did a lot of telemarketing. We sold out of state. Okay. So some of the people that were working for me, one of them knew what she said was the best dog trainer in the world. And I'm like, no way, I've been through a million dog trainers. She's like, go to him and he's going to make all your dreams come true. And I'm like, no way. So I said, you know what? I called him, because one time I was tired of them still pulling me. I couldn't give them, I was giving them enough exercise, but I still had.
They were still pulling you.
They were still pulling me.
Okay.
I had a lot of leash work because now I had two. And if I wanted to go on a hike with my wife and not a bike, and they were used to go on the bike pace, it became an issue of them pulling my shoulders out and harder for her to walk them. I was a stronger, younger man back then. And it was harder for her to walk him, though, just because she wasn't as strong as I was.
Mm-hmm.
So I was upset that I couldn't have that relationship with them. I couldn't take them everywhere I wanted to go because they were too feisty, too out of control with their pulling. Not that they were aggressive in any way towards anybody. They were just the sweetest dogs you ever want to meet.
Mm-hmm.
But when you want to do some activities, you want to go for a hike with another couple that we're friends with, they're a little bit of a problem. They weren't just like, yeah, my dog's going for a hike. They were working dogs and they want to pull you.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't further understand how to get that out of their system. So I went to highly recommended trainer, and I'd been through a lot of trainers, so I didn't put much faith into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I met him, and it's funny because his wife, the trainer's wife, owned a pet store. And he's like, meet me here at this day, and I'll tell you all about me. And I met him, and he was like an army guy because he had been in the military, and he was just real cut and dry. And he brought his shepherds. I didn't realize this, but he actually trained what they call Schutzen, which is a German protection. Almost all the police dogs you'll meet and all the military dogs are trained in Schutzen. And I knew nothing about this, but it's protection work. So if you want to get a lot of times they have shepherds, want to get a shepherd that's trained to protect you or your family, or if you have a business, whatever, they're trained in Schutzen. So he was a master trainer at this. And I'm like, what the heck am I doing with him? And he's like, no, I don't have to teach your dogs this. I'm not going to. We're just going to do behavioral work like you want, but I'm going to teach your dogs to be off leash. And I'm like, no way. I don't trust any husky off leash, because that's the biggest taboo, they say, is to let a husky, because
they'll run away.
They're so prey
You'll
driven.
never see them.
Exactly. And they've got so much competitiveness in them. So
They're independent.
They're independent.
Yeah,
exactly.
they're energetic.
Exactly. So they want to go. So he's like, I'm gonna teach you how to be off leash. I'm like, I'm not doing that. He said, no, I'm gonna show you how to do it. We're gonna go to tennis court. You're gonna let your dog off leash, one dog at a time, and I'm gonna teach you recall, how to call your dog to you, and he's gonna come. And I'm like, I don't know. He says, listen, it's $65. If this doesn't work with your dog, you don't pay me.
Okay.
So yeah, I said,
That's a good
okay,
deal.
what have I got to lose? And I probably would have thought this isn't going to work out, but because he was so highly recommended to me by someone that worked for me that I trusted, I said, I'll try it. And that was the big game changer in my life. Meeting that guy's name was John Collins. Meeting him opened up a whole new world, because I learned, we became pretty much best friends. We were together all the time. He had at that point he had 8 or 9 dogs, but at one point he had like 50 dogs. I mean, and he trained Baltimore County police dogs, and he was doing everything. And once I started, we became friends. I would go out with him when he would train other dogs, and I'd bring my dogs along, and he'd bring his dogs along. We'd have like 10, 15 dogs walking in the park off leash in areas that he was able to, because of his training status, have the dogs off leash. And he would be, I'm in a training session, these dogs are fine.
So what was his technique?
His technique. So what he would use, he was very assertive. Okay. A lot. He would start actually using electric, almost like an invisible fence collar. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are really against it. The problem is, though, a lot of people don't know how to use it, and they don't do it right. And it's the best friend ever. And that's one thing I was really against. I didn't want to use electric because I had no idea what it was. And then he said to me, or the person that worked for me said to me, well, you know what? You have an invisible fence? I'm like, yeah, well, that's it. You're teaching a dog boundary with the invisible fence. It's the same thing.
And it's not
almost
for
the same
long, right?
No,
because they'll learn quick.
They'll learn usually just 1 or 2 times.
Right, and that's it.
And they actually sell dummy collars, they're called. So they feel like electric collars, but they're not. But I was using them because I never knew. If I had dogs, even if they're on leash and a deer goes by, or another a reactive dog goes by, they'll pull you to it, and they'll try to escape. And if they're off leash, they're gone. But with the electric, they're not. They listen. And a lot of times, almost never do you need to use. I use it so infrequently, I almost forget how to use it. Yeah. I'm too because I'm on the other side, because I want to use it the limited amount as possible. But I could take my dogs after that anywhere, off leash, do anything. And it's, again, not something that you can hear me just tell you about and just think you can go out and do. It's a lot of training. There's a lot of back end work that needs to be done, and you need to know how to appropriately and when to appropriately.
Well, the way I see it is that yes, they're gonna have a little bit of uncomfortable. They're gonna be uncomfortable for a couple of days, but then they're gonna be able to be free.
Exactly.
And that's what you get. And
but you know what it's like?
It's worth it.
So if your dog,
it's discipline.
It's discipline. Exactly. But if your dog, you know what it is more than the uncomfort they feel. Because it's for a second, it's just, and it's nothing dangerous, nothing's going to hurt them. But it's more like taking 2 trash can lids if they're fighting and slapping them together. Because it's like, whoa, what was that? It gets their attention.
Right.
Once you got their attention, because they get so into what's going on, whether it's locking on a deer with their eyes, just looking, and you try to call them, no, I'm not listening. Even if you're on a leash, no, I'm not listening. And then all of a sudden you do something outlandish, like loud, that'll startle them. Like that, then they're like, what's up? So the collar does the same thing essentially as that, because it's like a nick or a pinprick.
Right. Or it's like when when my parents discipline me, like they'll do something, like they'll spank me, you know, and then I'll learn my lesson and I won't do that again. So
exactly. Once they learn, they're good to go. Once they learn, they're good to go. So so
you were fascinated with.
I was like, I called him the magic man. I just couldn't believe what he could do. And then, we got into other stuff, which you don't use electric for, like what they call it plots. So PLATZ. So that's in German. And that's the word that means for them to stay down, but in a ready position. So they'll lay down with their stomach on the ground. Oh. And usually the paws are out in front and they're waiting for a command. Like for German protection, the bad guy goes by, they say plots. And if he runs, the bad guy, then they say, get him. They give him the command to go chase the bad guy and get him. So that's where now I didn't change. I wasn't doing protection work. I just taught them to lay down, to go to be down in a ready position. And if whatever comes by, there's no distraction. You do not get up. And that you don't need to use electric for. You just need to be assertive with them. We use actually hot dogs to train them to do that, because they get on the ground and they want to pop back up. They were hard. That was hard to train them. That was much harder than training the recall. Was the plots position. But wow, it's so incredible, because when I'm out with the dogs on the trail and there becomes a situation where I need to separate them from the bicycle, take them off the tethers, and it's harder for me to I can leash them to myself. I always have a way to do that. But instead of that, if I can put them on the side and put them in a plots position, I can get maybe the bike wheel broken. I have to take the wheel off. I can do that. And they're just standing there. They're laying down, watching me. They can watch around them, but they won't get up and interact with anybody else.
How many do you have now?
4.
4.
Oh,
yes. Nice. What are their names? And a little Chinese crescent.
So I've got Nikita. They're all females too. So all
females. So you're done with males.
Well, people ask me, why do you have all female? And it just worked out that way. It's nothing against. I love them all. Yeah. But I've got Nikita, Cyan, Inyo, and Lola.
And what's the difference between the male and female as far as their personality, or is it the same?
Yeah. You know what? You could have the same personality streak in both of them. So I had my first female was named Princess, and she was the alpha. Oh my God, I thought the boys were tough. Oh, she was.
So females can be alpha.
Oh yeah, they can, and a lot of times they learn that, or they get that way because they have puppies and they protect the puppies more than the males do. So they become, and sometimes in protective sports or protective work, they'll want the female to breed to know what that protection is like, to get that quality in them. And so this Princess, she was a princess. She was just, so I had Czar and Hudson with Princess, and she was like, she ruled them. I had to break them up from a fight. I didn't think, really? I almost got bitten myself. Yeah, when I first got her, introduced her the right way, but she was just like all or nothing. And she got out there, and my Czar and Hudson were getting older at the time. And she grabbed Czar because they got in a fight over food. They actually won food because I wouldn't feed them that way, but something was on the ground. I think it was birdseed actually from the feeder. Anything can set them off when you get dogs like that. And she just, she locked on, and I'm pulling them apart. I mean, they won't, quote unquote, kill each other, God forbid, a million times, but they drew blood. And luckily I've never had to go to a veterinarian because it was so bad, but usually it gets bad if it's around the face. And I did have some face biting with them. And so you just want to watch the eyes, of course, but you don't want them biting anywhere.
Right. What's the most you've had?
The most huskies?
Yes.
I got 4.
That's the most.
Yeah. 4 is my number because my bikes are set up for 4.
Okay.
Almost all the equipment. I've been experimenting if I can expand that, maybe possibly, but it's a lot of work.
I'm sure it's a lot of work just to get out and.
It is, and I'm so particular in what I do, and so we'll call it I get a little crazy that I need to know every dog is okay every step of the way. So I just get to the nth degree. So worrying about 4 and worrying about more would really take me down, because I want to make sure every dog is as comfortable as can be, doing the right thing, as safe as possible. So even in my yard, now I moved to a bigger house and I have more land.
Oh, that's nice.
And I've got over 50 cameras. I mean, when they're out in the yard, I know exactly. And I've got chain link fences. I don't just have I have an invisible fence too for different areas, but I have chain link fence that's 8 feet tall and a foot in the ground, or 18 inches in the ground. So they can't dig out, because huskies will dig, and they can't climb the fence, not easily at least.
Yeah.
And I've never, ever had any of them escape my yard well, let me take that back. One time, one of my dogs with the invisible fence did get out of the yard because of fireworks. So neighbors shooting fireworks. Are
they sensitive to noise?
As they get older, I think they get more sensitive.
Okay.
And I think because they start losing their hearing, and they're even though we might not feel the vibration, that resonates with them. So fireworks, they might not be as loud to them, but maybe because it's less sound, they feel a little, I'm going to say shelter, but they feel like, oh my gosh, what is going on? I can't hear it all. And then they feel it. And I think they become more aware of their feeling because they can't hear the full extent of the firework. Okay. So I think that gets them a little crazy. And because she was never reacted to fireworks. So all of a sudden the neighbor started shooting them off, and she got out of the yard, but she was soon to be back because my other neighbor saw that. But otherwise, I never had them even try to get out of the yard because they're so exercised. And it's not just the exercise, they're enriched. Right. They're psychologically enriched, so they're desensitized, they're challenged enough.
You've taken them to many places.
Many places.
So tell me one of the most exciting places you've taken them to. I want to know a story about it.
Okay. So one of the most exciting places probably would be Washington, D.C. We did the National Mall. Oh,
nice. That's a nice run too. Yeah.
This was crazy. I'm going back to 2013. Okay. So what's that, 10, 11, 12 years ago. And we went to National Mall. A lot of the friends that I work with are video people and professional media people. So a couple of the guys, they said to me, why don't we take the dogs to the National Mall? You can have dogs legally, you can walk them, and you can legally have bikes there. Oh. Let's do that, and let's make you a YouTube video. Oh. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't feel exciting. I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, we'll do it at night so there's less people, not on a busy day, not on the 4th of July or anything, of course. We'll do it on just a weekday in the winter when it'll be cooler. So we head down there, and I brought like 8 people because I was concerned. Who knows what's going to happen?
It was your first time doing this.
My first time. Yes. And I only did it once in my whole life, but I've been to Washington because I lived there. But I brought a bunch of people because I wanted to ensure everybody's safety, the dogs. I mean, most of the guys can take care of themselves. Course. And I'm not saying about crime. I'm just saying about crazy drivers, things happen. And I'm saying about other dogs that I didn't know that could attack. So I wanted to have enough hands-on. Crime was the furthest thing from our mind because, that area we thought would be pretty safe.
Pretty safe, yes.
Yeah. So at least then it was for sure. So we first thing happens, we pull up in like 3 trucks. We got an entourage with us. And we're setting
like a reality TV show.
I'm telling you, this was incredible. I got to get Rod to do this with me. So we pull up, and all of a sudden we get police coming over to us, federal police. They say, what's going on, fellas? And we said, well, we're going to take the dog. We show him what we're going to do. And he's like, that's pretty cool, but I'm not so sure you're allowed to do it. And we explained to him why not. And so he said, okay, I can see. I'm going to let you go, and I'll call ahead and let people know I saw you, other officers, other agencies, because this was after 9/11, so they still had a lot of cops and a lot of Secret Service would guard that area. And it's funny because when we were talking to this officer, one of the guys that I have he tries to talk through everything and reason, and he said to the officer, he said, well, the officer was concerned that we had professional video equipment. And he said, so
you
guys,
might need a permit.
You guys need a permit for this.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, well, we are professional videographers, photographers.
Mm-hmm.
But we're doing this for fun because Bill's our friend,
right.
the Wolf driver, and we're putting this on YouTube because back then YouTube wasn't as big, it wasn't as commercially recognized. And he's like, well, I don't know. And then my one friend says to him, well, you go out and shoot for fun, don't you? You shoot your gun for fun. We're shooting videos. He says, yeah, I don't go and kill people. I'm like, oh, don't be saying that to him. Next thing you know, we'd be impounding stuff. So he
bring
let us,
up guns.
I know. I'm just like, oh gosh. But he let us go. He's like, okay, you guys can go. You talked me into it. So we're riding up, and first place we go to is the Lincoln Memorial. And where I remember there's people jogging. I think it'd be this busy at night. There's people jogging.
What time was it?
This was about 8 o'clock at night. Yeah. So it was dark. I think it was definitely winter time. I'm thinking December, January.
Oh, it was cold.
Yeah, it was cold, but
that's what they like.
It was kind of like, they love it.
They
so
love
the
the cold, right?
And they're urbanized. They're like, because I've taken them through the towns. So this is a bigger town, of course, not New York, but Washington. But we're going down. I'll never forget the Lincoln Memorial, and there's people. They weren't that interested in what I was doing. They're just jogging and a lot of times I get a lot of reactions. They weren't reacting. They've seen it all probably in the big cities. So I'm going down the Lincoln Memorial, and then I went right where the reflecting pond is there. Went down there and came out. Then we went by the Washington Monument, which they were refacing it, doing construction. So they had a barbed wire fence around it, but we could get close to it. And we were able to go. And then we're heading towards the U.S. Capitol, and we were busy street crossing, and another cop. And he's like, fellas. And I'm like, he's like, I'm Secret Service. You talk to someone else. Show me exactly what you're doing. I said, well, you kind of see it. And you can see I'm up to nothing nefarious because I wouldn't be on a big getaway with dogs with me. You know? And he's like, no, I can see that. He says, all right. And he says, it looks professional, but I understand you guys are professional. This is for a YouTube documentary. I said, yep, we're not affiliated with any ABC, any corporate ventures. This is for me. And it was funny because he said to me, I see you have an electric. See, I was doing what I call my dog motorsports back then too. So if the dogs, and dog motorsports, so the dogs don't have to pull. And this is my whole gig as long as I've been doing this. If the dog says, I don't want to go in this direction, I'm like, we're going in this direction. I can get them to go in that direction. The dog does not have to pull. Of course, people say, well, this is cruel. You're making the dog run. But believe me, I've had dogs that don't want to run, and I'll tell you that story later. But he saw the motor on the bike, and he says, you can't use that motor on federal park grounds. So just tell me you're not using it. I said, I'm not using it. He said, as long as you've told me, he says, I wouldn't know if you were because I know I can't hear it because it's electric. Then you're free to go. He was cool about it.
Oh, that's good.
So that we had at that point, because of everything we dealt with, traffic-wise, pedestrian-wise, we turned around. We didn't quite make it to the U.S. Capitol. We got a nice picture near there, but we turned around there and we headed back to our other team, what I call the Wolf Driver Pit Crew, that was waiting for us, that had all our cars being safe and keeping our loading area safe. And we got the dogs. We got them.
And that was the first YouTube video.
It was the most famous YouTube video at the time.
The one that went viral.
Yeah, what's that? Yes. Yeah.
So going back to that cruelty comment that you said, what would you tell people that think, oh my gosh, this is cruel, you know, you shouldn't be making them run like that? Like, what would you tell them? Like, no, this is actually good for them.
So many people. So I get videos that go viral. So what it means when they go viral is a lot of people see it that have no idea what I'm doing. People that follow me understand. They've heard me explain. And a lot of them are husky owners themselves or working breed owners. And they understand that these breeds need a lot of energy release, need to be challenged, and they need a lot of psychological enrichment, which also comes from the kind of running they do, being in the environment, being with all the elements they sniff and do everything they do. So a lot of people think, oh, that dog, you know, it's snowing outside, that should be on the couch with you. But that's the furthest from where that dog wants to be. That especially huskies, because they're built for the most extreme conditions. They want to be in the most extreme conditions. And with pulling, because people think that the pulling aspect is cruel, but these dogs were built to pull and built to run. And when I say built that way, because somebody was trying to made some comments on Instagram, and they were saying, well, the dog didn't come out of the mother's womb and know how to pull a sled. And that is very true. But the dog has the instinct and has the traits that are all built around pulling and are all built around running. So that's why different breed dogs, some dogs are protection dogs, some dogs are herding dogs, some dogs are sled dogs. And those dogs have those traits, and it's so easy to show them what they need to do with them or what they were bred to do with them. And when they can do that, they're enriched. So that's like, it's like a release, like you have your endorphins release. When they're doing it, you can see a lot of times with my dogs, you can see their tongue hanging sideways. And a lot of people say that's the closest thing to a human smile, of the dog smiling like that, because they are just so happy. They're doing what they're doing. And in a lot of my videos, especially when we first get on a trail, when they're amped up to go, people can see the excitement in the dog. I can't control them a lot of times. And when we stop, they don't like to stop for long because they're just all about their recovery time. Their metabolism and everything about them is built to just keep going and going and going.
On average, how long can they go?
They could go, sled dogs can go over 100 miles a day if properly conditioned and properly,
that's insane.
And the conditions are right. Yeah. So my dogs aren't going to do that without, and when they bred sled dogs, they found, or when they studied them through their breeding, their metabolism is like no other. They can burn fat stores, which the fat they store, which I don't know if anything else out there can actually burn the fat stores. It's glycogen. Some of these words are coming to mind, that what the dogs, how their metabolism works. I call it a scientific wonder because scientists have studied it. And I have an article that further explains this on one of my websites. Scientists have studied it and said it's like no other metabolism. They can't think about it, but they can almost control their metabolism. So that means that their energy is controllable by them, how much energy. So they recover real quickly, and they can go on and on and on and on.
And if they don't get that on a daily or frequently, what happens? They whine.
That's the whole problem. When a lot, some dogs, when we neuter and spay our dogs, like we talked about, that does help cut down usually on some of their desire to run and desire to be as energetic as they are. And that's another thing we got to worry about when we do, and this happened to me before, when we fix our dogs, they can become lazier and they can lay around and they can gain weight. But a lot of these dogs, I've got two now that aren't spayed, just want to go on forever and keep going and going and going. So if you don't give the dog the proper opportunities and outlets to exercise and to be physically, to be psychologically enriched, they will act out in other ways, and they become unmanageable. And a lot of huskies will try to find their own entertainment. They'll break out of their house, they'll break out of their yard, and so many of them go missing. And then they get into neighbors. A lot of times their livestock. Someone might have chickens. A lot of people have in rural areas, and they'll kill them because they're hunters and that's what they do. And then they become deemed nuisance dogs that are, and then they become, some towns claim that they're problematic dogs, and I don't know, you got to get special licensing or they won't let you have them there. And that's become a couple places across America that I've learned about. So, and it's just quick exercise. And what I do, the bike-like idea, I call it dog motorsports, but using a bike, you can quickly exercise your huskies too. You don't necessarily have to go 10 million miles. And a lot of the dogs that are in our world today here, unless they're bred specifically, come from sled dog lines, they're not going to be as capable, or it's going to be harder to get them conditioned like that. So people don't have to worry about needing to run them 100 miles a day. I mean, that's a.
But I still think that if you're going to own a husky, you need to have the time to walk them, or you
do. And I don't want to discourage people because there's so many.
But it's great that you're educating them, because you don't want someone getting a husky and they're like, oh, what I got myself into, like you.
Right.
The good thing about you was that you did something about it. And like, look at you now. You have, your huskies, your YouTube video, generations, right?
Yeah.
How many generations?
I've had 3 generations.
3
of them.
generations, and then you
Yes.
have a documentary.
I have a documentary.
I want to
Right.
hear about your documentary.
So
That's exciting.
The documentary, the documentary is truly awesome. So doing this for 30 years
30
now,
years.
and I met a guy who is our producer here, Rod Lopez, and Rod was editing some of my videos. Probably 5 years ago, we met each other, and I consulted with him, contracted him to do, because I'm going out 1, 2, sometimes more. Well, I adventure with the dogs. I tried to 3 to 4 times a week, but I was going on these mega adventures, traveling up and down the East Coast at least once, if not twice a week.
Nice.
And I was getting so much video footage. And I said, that's always been my struggle. It's hard for me to edit it. I've got some knowledge, nothing like a professional editor. And I want to share this because I want people to see my passion and to see what a dog, how it can change their whole life.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to make these videos. I'm filming all this, and I met Rod through he had an advertisement somewhere, and Rod's like, yeah, I can edit this. And some of the stuff he was doing, I was like, wow, this is awesome. I was just falling in love with it. And Rod said, hey, I think what you're doing is really interesting. Let's make a documentary. And I said, well, I don't know if I've got the time. And he's like, no, I'll just follow you around, and we'll see what we come up with. But
so it's like a reality, kind of like a reality TV show.
Exactly. I'm living the dream every day.
That's
from what I do. And he's over my house and meeting up with me at some of the locations. Actually, we're getting ready to film on a location and maybe do a TV show, hopefully, in the future.
Very nice.
But so some of the areas I go to are really remote, so it's hard to get them there. But I work with another guy who, I call it my Wolf Driver pit crew. So it's like a team of guys over the years that I've developed. Some are still around, some go with me on my trips. And I have a current crew, of course, but one of the guys been with me since I started. But the guy now I have, his name is Scott. Scott is become almost a professional drone pilot. So he's getting some incredible drone footage, and that's what Rod was using on a lot of the exotic or more remote locations.
What places do you go visit for the documentary?
Okay, for the documentary.
Yes,
We've gone. Most of those remote places are filmed by Scott, but we've gone through West Virginia.
Okay.
I've gone to Massachusetts, the Cape Cod Rail Trail,
nice.
and we've gone as far south as North Carolina. So we've gone to Corolla Beach. I don't know if you've heard of that. That's a beach where I could run the dogs. That was a cool area.
Nice.
And as far southwest, I guess you would call it, Tennessee. We were right at the Tennessee border. So we've been all over, but we still haven't made it. We're not going to go down to Florida because that's too warm for the dogs anyway.
That's too warm,
but
right?
there, you could get towards that way, South Carolina. We haven't gone yet, and we'd like to go west. We'd actually like to go to Colorado.
Take them to Canada.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, we've gone to Niagara Falls. So I went to Buffalo with the dogs just recently, last year, and we did the Shoreline Trail, which goes through Niagara Falls. We couldn't quite take the dogs to Niagara Falls, but we walked and visited it.
Nice. So when do we expect to see this documentary?
Well, the documentary is hopefully we've entered some film festivals, and it's
very
actually
nice.
We've actually won some awards. So
nice.
it's
Which
really
one?
A few of them. Let me think. So we've won. Actually, I think we won Athens over in Europe, Greece.
Very nice.
We won here. I can't remember which one.
You're going through the film festival circuit, and then after that, you're going to probably stream it or
hopefully, yes.
Yeah, because people want to know what's in the documentary. They want to learn.
I
want to know more.
I went to the One Film Festival, which is pretty small and quaint, up in right near Philadelphia, and we won that festival.
Oh, that's exciting.
I forget the name of it, but it was so cool.
Were you there? Did you actually go?
I was there.
How did you feel?
Rod and I were there. It was incredible because I had never really seen it projected. It was a big screen, but it wasn't. We did a premiere in Towson, so that was the really big screen. So that was even more. That was the first time. So, and all our family was there. My wife and extended family, and Rod and his family were there. So that was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. So what did you win at the film festival? Was it?
We won for best documentary. Best production or directing.
Oh, very nice.
What Rod did producing.
Good. Yeah, he's really good. Where is he?
and by the way, they can go to dogdocumentary.com.
dogdocumentary.com.
Yep.
Okay.
You can go there and you can see the awards we won. And you can see a lot of everything I'm talking about here. Even the trip to DC, even though it was years ago, I think there's a link on it to
I
that.
want to see that.
But we go from extremes from like DC to some of the most rural lands you don't even know you're in the USA anymore. I mean, there's nothing within, it's remote. It's nothing in miles and miles and miles. And that's why I'll use satellite communicators, satellite phones basically, and LTE walkie-talkies, because we try to stay in touch with what I call my wingman, the guy he's the guy that drops us off in one location and picks us up in another. So when we go, just to explain this to you, we usually don't, if we say we're going to go to a trail, we usually don't go down the trail and come back, because when the dogs smell their scent coming back, they're like, I mean, that happens, but they're not as excited. When they keep smelling fresh scents and get new visions and new sounds, they're more excited. And we're more excited too.
Well, I'm excited. I want to see your documentary, and I want to go when you go with your huskies, and he goes, I want to go too.
Oh, yeah.
I want to see it. I like to be behind the camera too.
Oh, yeah. Rod actually went with me on one of the farms, because there's a few farms we go to that I run the dogs, usually in different capacities. On ATVs, I free range them. And one farm in the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia.
Oh, Shenandoah. That's nice.
So it's
beautiful.
Really cool. So farms surrounded by mountains. And
okay.
So lately, though, the snow has made it a little bit of an obstacle. But I always pride myself on the dogs are built for snow, but I pride myself on getting out in any conditions. But when it becomes icy, it becomes hard for us to get traction. So that's the one limiting feat. But we'll actually put chains on some of the vehicles. So, because the dogs will get traction because of their claws and because they're on four legs, at least better traction than we can. But the chains on the tires on some of my ATV-like bikes help me navigate the dogs in the icy conditions. So stay tuned for that.
Well, you already know. Next time, invite me, okay?
Oh, sure.
So great learning so much about huskies and what you do and your documentary. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah, I learned a whole lot.
Thanks for the interview. We did not get to any questions. I'm just going to check.
Yes, of course.
Rod, do we have anything?
Just a comment from Cheryl, just saying that great interview.
Oh.
Carry on.
Yeah, Cheryl. I know when I heard "Carry On," I know who you are. Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate that. Yeah, we hope to do some more interviews and some more, maybe even displays or viewings of our documentary, maybe even in other theaters that people can come and we can do some Q&As there, Rod and I, because we did in Towson. When we did that, we had some Q&As and they were interesting. I love getting the questions. I find that having to answer the questions, articulate it, helps me learn too.
Of course.
And, makes me think deeper into some of the aspects of what I'm doing.
Of course.
So I can really explain it my best and learn from the conversation and take that on, maybe adjust something or give me an idea to do something
Q&A
differently.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just from our talk today, I learned so much. I didn't know, I thought I love dogs. I thought a dog is a dog, but I was like, huskies are different,
Yeah. They
Yeah,
really are.
yeah,
They really are.
they're
That
different.
metabolism, how that really just.
What's one thing one characteristic or trait that you love about huskies that you would say?
I love their well, I love their energy. That just I feed off of that energy. But I love, and my wife gets on my case about this because I let my guys jump all over me. And it doesn't teach them when they meet other people to not jump on them. So they can be a lot, and I say guys, the girls now, they can be a lot. I mean, that's just, when I told you I met the first husky and he put his paw on my shoulders, I love that interaction. So I could easily train it out of them. Usually as they get older, they'll jump less and less just because they get tired of it. They're getting older. They save their energy for running. But when I go home now, they'll jump all over me, and I love it. I've got one that's not a big jumper, but 3 of them really are. So Lola, because she's getting a little older, Lola's the one that actually looks like a husky, because they all look different. You haven't seen pictures of them.
No, I want to see pictures.
So and people say to me, they're not huskies because they look so unusual. But I've got one that is like they call them egalities or dirty faces
Mhm.
because their faces are like covered in the color of them. So I got one that's
Oh.
brown. Brown's kind of an unusual color.
Uh-huh.
And she looks almost like a coyote.
Oh.
I've got Lola, and that's Nikita. I've got Lola, that is the more traditional looking husky.
Mhm.
And she's the oldest one now. She's about 7.5.
Mhm.
So she's out of the jumping stage. But she'll still nail me sometime when I least expect it.
Yeah.
And then I've got Cyan, who is what they call a gray wolf coat. So
Oh.
she's a gouty. She's got the gray face,
Mhm.
and her whole body has got gray and white, and she's got blue eyes. So she really looks like a
Nice.
wolf when you stare in those eyes.
Mhm.
And then Inyo is an all black dog.
Mhm.
It's black, but there's some mahogany in there. It's really interesting colors. And her eyes sometimes look red. She's got the wolf red eyes almost.
Oh,
They're
nice.
brown, but when you get to a different light, they become
Mhm.
red. And she's all their personalities. I love learning the personalities
Mhm.
because that's the way you can really feel their heart and know what they're
Right.
about,
Yes.
what drives them, and how they handle life.
How do you
different
cope with
situations.
the loss when you lost? I'm sure you loved all of them.
Oh yeah, that's
It's hard.
and that's losing a dog. That's a lot of reason why a lot of people won't have dogs.
Yeah.
A lot of
It's a
times
big
people,
reason.
yeah, a
Mhm.
lot of times people get a dog, they'll lose their dog, and
It's like
might just be
losing
old age.
your child. I feel like.
Yeah, most of us are going to outlive our dogs because they live shorter lives, of
Yeah.
course. So
Mhm.
it's one of the hardest things you have to do. And so Czar, my first dog, when I lost him, that was Hudson actually
Mhm.
went before Czar.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah. So that was,
Mm.
but they most of them have lived long lives. And you just, my veterinarian always says something's going to get them, just like something's going
That
to get
is
us.
true. It's life.
know,
I mean, we'll
it's-
have to go too at
Yeah,
one point.
yeah.
That's just what life is about.
Yeah, you just got to celebrate their life. And
Right.
that's why I make all these memories, though. I'm constantly videoing,
Mhm.
photographing, because I can look at almost any video. I have them all playing in my man cave.
Mhm.
So I've got the videos and the photos. I can look at almost anyone and know exactly where that picture or that video was filmed. And it just brings such a smile to my face and warms my heart.
I can
you
tell.
It's like
The way you
so,
talk about
it's incredible.
the
So
huskies.
the
Does your
dog's
wife
always
get jealous?
living in oh yeah. She's like
Does she get jealous?
well, there's a famous line, and she probably says this too, that if it's the dogs or me, it's me. that's one of the guys that used to go with us. We call him the old wise man Jim, and he's still part of the team. He's 75 now, but he always says when he's in the back of the dog bike, because I was running tandem bikes, 2 people, he
Uh-huh.
would sit in the back and watch the dogs and watch the situation and help me with the dogs. And he would always say, "I know, buddy, if it's the dogs or me, it's going to be me that dies before the dogs." I said, "Yes, you got it, Jim. Now you know what I'm paying you." So yeah, that's the way we do it in
nice.
Wolf Driver Land. That's my famous saying.
Yeah. That's nice. Well,
Yep.
it's a great. I just enjoyed learning everything about you,
Cool.
what you
cool.
do.
Well, I look forward to maybe doing
Yeah.
this again. Appreciate
Of
it.
course.
And hope everybody enjoyed the interview. And keep in mind, any other questions or comments, you can always put it in our section here on whatever social media outlet you're following it. I'm always perusing social media and trying to respond to everybody as I can. We hope to be on one of our dog adventures tomorrow. Still looking for trails that are clear. I did find one trail where they actually plow the snow. So that's going to be good. Then you have to be concerned about salt. So if they
Yeah.
use salt, so you might need to booty up the dogs. I'm Wolf Driver. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget, dogdocumentary.com. You'll see the documentary, and we hope to do some more interviews and some more other cool stuff coming up in the near future. Going to sign off
Definitely.
now. Thank you so much again,
Thank you.
Sophia.
No, thank you for having
Appreciate
me.
your time. Thank you.
Yes.
Have a great